Hello everyone. Welcome to this month's speaker series hosted by the Mars Robotics Association. We're based in Mars, Pennsylvania and have FIRST robotics teams for grades 4 through 12. This month our speaker is Steve Tolin, the founder of Tolin FX, an award-winning special FX makeup studio, serving the entertainment industry for over 20 years. In this role, he creates custom artworks for feature and short films, television and internet episodes, and much more. He has worked for Universal Studios, Paramount Pictures, Lockheed Martin, Nickelodeon, Netflix, and more. In the industry, he has to utilize multiple different tools and materials to get the end result, and with this comes a lot of inventing and innovating. He owns a 6,000 square foot facility in Pittsburgh from which he bases his operations. Mr. Tolin, welcome to Mars, and thanks to everyone for joining us tonight. At the end of tonight's episode, we will answer viewer-submitted questions. You can submit any question you have throughout the show through the link in the description below. We'll try to answer as many as we can. Mr. Tolin, take it away.
Hey, Evan, thanks for having me. Hey, guys, nice to be here. So my name is Steve Tolin, like Evan mentioned. I've been doing special effects for about 25 years. Special effects in Pittsburgh specifically, but also across the country and across the world. I work primarily in film and TV and in live performance, from theater to interactive experiences. I also do museum work and custom design and fabrication. Pretty much any challenge that somebody would have creatively that involves special effects, we take on that job. Special effects really is a perfect job for me because I'm originally from West Virginia. And as a kid growing up there, I was going to be a biologist. From the time I was very young, I hiked the mountains of West Virginia, hunting and fishing and learning about my natural world. And now I make monsters, which is pretty much the reverse of that. So as a kid, I was given the form of animals and plants and was, had a very strong desire to find the function of them. As a monster maker, I am given the function of a monster and in the form of a script or in the form of a concept. And it's up to me to help to find what the form of that thing will be. So, I was on the road to be a biologist right up until I graduated high school, and I attended the West Virginia Governor's School for the Arts, which was a program that was a very intensive training program that allowed students to focus on an artistic discipline that they were interested in. Mine was visual arts, and for me that was a big turning point because I had always been told that I only had so many limited options. You know, I could go and be a scientist. I could, be a lawyer. I could be a doctor, something along those lines. But nobody ever told me that I could be a professional artist. And once I realized that, I took what is my naturally analytical brain and combined it with a creative brain. And that's really what you're talking about with special effects. So special effects really is about problem solving. And I learned that at the Art Institute at Pittsburgh very early. Working for a mentor of mine, Doug Henderson. He was one of my instructors at the school, and he taught me that special effects is more than just about gluing rubber onto people's faces. It's more than just spraying blood in the air when it comes to working on a movie. It's really about being able to take a creative challenge and find an innovative, creative solution to that challenge. In film and TV, obviously, that's going to take on the form of monsters more times than not. But in live performance, it can take on any number of roles. For instance, one of the things that I have created are these devices that make it look like you get shot with no explosives. You're looking at one there on the screen. That is one that we designed for a live performance that was designed to create the illusion of someone being shot 36 times on stage. It was for a play about Joan Didion's essay, The White Album. For me, in regards to how this might be of interest to you guys, I think that I feel like I'm definitely riding that line between STEM and STEAM. The art added to the technology is really what I'm interested in pursuing. So technology is very cool on its own. Computers are cool. Being able to create on computers is cool. But really taking something that is artistic and blending it with engineering is really what excites me. So, I was talking about the idea of these squib units. That is a perfect example of something where you've got the art of a performance and a moment that needs to happen on stage or on screen, and combining it with like, how are we going to build this thing? What are we going to do to create a device that can meet these challenges? And, as I mentioned before, being a biologist, I was utilizing only half of my brain. Once I realized that I could be an artist and a biologist together and combine problem solving with that, really what you're talking about is a very left and right brain activity that, is a more holistic approach to problem solving. It's one thing to be able to code your solution. It's another thing to be able to paint your solution. But if you can figure out a way to code and paint, it really gives you a much broader palette to be able to draw from to be able to create, a new voice for yourself. Because, for me, I think that it's really not just about what do you want to do for a living. I think that you really have to find the coolest job you can think of, and try to approach it from, how can I take the gifts that I have been given and apply them to the world to create a more positive outcome. That kind of speaks to my personal philosophy a little bit, and not just within special effects, but really within life, because every challenge that I'm given for a film or for a live performance, you can, and this is true with any situation in your life, you have every situation and every environment has problems and it has solutions. You have the ability to look at a situation and say, I really want this outcome. Somebody needs a monster that can do this crazy thing. Somebody needs to get shot 36 times on stage. Somebody needs me to build a miniature of their airplane. And I can say, well, it's got all these problems. How am I going to build a miniature of the airplane? I don't even know what it looks like. How am I going to build that monster? I've never built anything like that before. How am I going to make it look like somebody got shot 36 times on stage? That's like, no one's going to be able to do that. Or you can approach it from a solution-oriented standpoint, which is more along the lines of saying, okay, so I don't know what that plane looks like, but I need to be able to build a miniature. So how can I get to that point? How can I make it look like this thing has happened? How can I create this moment that somebody is telling me is an impossibility to be able to create? How can I actually get to the solution of it? And I was talking to one of the guys that works with me not too long ago, and I feel like it's really the question of being able to approach a problem or a challenge with the opinion of yes, but, rather than no, unless. So again, I'll use those same examples. Can you build me a miniature airplane? No, unless you get me an airplane and get me the schematics, and no, unless you can do this, and unless you can give me that, as opposed to, yes, I can do that, but I'm going to need some pictures of the airplane. Yes, I can do that, but I'm going to need to know some more details about what you need to see this monster do on screen. So as far as, not just from a special effects standpoint, but from somebody who has been combining art and technology for a long time as a career, what I can tell you is how you approach a challenge in terms of your frame of mind, whether it is from a positive standpoint where you are interested in coming up with a solution to the problem, or whether it's from a negative standpoint where you are going to try to create as many hurdles for yourself. The hurdles exist. They already exist. You don't have to create new hurdles to overcome to be able to get to where you're going. You're really trying to find, yes, how can I push past these points? And, special effects for me, especially around Pittsburgh, I was going to go to New York or LA or someplace where they do, Broadway shows and they do Hollywood movies. But the truth is that in my time in Pittsburgh, attending the Art Institute of Pittsburgh, I fell in love with the city. And one of the reasons that I fell in love with this city is that it's real. The people here are real. they're not glossed over with, as much pizzazz as show business would typically present. It allows the ability for me to strike a real balance between my work life and my family life. I've got 5 kids at home that I'm taking care of. Especially with this pandemic, we're doing a lot of that school from home now. So the idea that I can have a video chat with you guys like this from my home studio, the idea that I can create these squibs, which I sell all over the world to filmmakers and theaters, in Scandinavia and in Asia, all throughout Europe and South America. I'm doing that from Pittsburgh. And what's beautiful about that is the idea that I have lunch with my family and then I get to work. And work is not typically with this kind of business. You'll hear a lot of special effects guys in my industry talk about the idea that they had to give up everything to be in the movie business. And I don't really think that's necessary. Your work shouldn't have to cost you the rest of your life. It should enhance the rest of your life. I love to work probably more than most people. But it can't be the only thing that I do. I think that loving on my family is very important to me too. And one of the other reasons that I want to work from Pittsburgh is that, again, with show business, you've got a lot of gloss and glamour going on that allows you to live like a real life. And it's easy in a world like that to feel like, and this is not just true about Hollywood and New York, I feel like it happens on social media and it happens in this virtual world where we're all trying to create an image and create like this image crafted version of ourselves rather than focusing on what is important, which is how can I take the gifts that God has given me and leave a more lasting positive impact on the world. I do it through art. I do it through philosophy. Mostly what I'm really trying to do at the end of the day, special effects and problem solving and all that kind of stuff is one way to describe what I'm doing. But what I am really doing is helping somebody else, another creative person who wants to build something. They want to make something, but they just can't deal with this one part of it. Like, how can I do this one part that is so difficult for me? I am able to come in a lot of cases, it's the one movie that somebody is going to make in their whole life. Or it's the play that they've been working on for 20 years and they finally are going to get it up on stage. As far as leaving a positive impact on the world, what I'm able to do is help people's dreams come true by adding that one little piece to their creative challenge that allows them to really see their vision come to life, which is really cool for me because I feel like that's what God put me on earth to do. I feel like, I don't know if any of you know about personality types, but you should check them out if you don't. Myers-Briggs is a study on personality types, and I'm what they call the campaigner. I find my joy in helping other people find their joy. So, it's cool for me to be able to make something, and it's cool for me to be able to learn and grow. Learning and growing are two of my favorite things. But in a vacuum where I was doing that on my own, I would not have as much joy in my own life. Really, what I want to do is be able to help other people find their joy. And special effects is a great way to do that because what I do is very unique and the problems that I solve are very unique. So to be able to make somebody's monster for their movie that they've been in their head, they've had a vision of what this thing could be for the past 10 years. And now I'm able to finally help them put it up on screen. A lot of times when that's happening, I'm not looking at the monitor to see what the monster looks like on camera. I'm looking at the director to see how they are reacting to seeing their vision come to life, which is, for me, really cool. And again, so I think that when you're thinking about what kind of career you want, I mean, you obviously have already found an interest in robotics and in engineering and technology, but I think it's really important to explore yourself and say, like, what is it that I'm supposed to be doing here? How can I leave a positive impact? How can I express who I really am? And what work did God put me on earth to do? I think that is the work you're supposed to be doing. Not what everybody tells you is going to make the most money, not what everybody's going to tell you is going to make you famous or popular or any of that crap. What matters is doing the work that is going to affect other people in positive ways and build your relationship with God. And for me, helping other people make their creative aspirations possible really is what drives me. So be thinking about that when you're deciding what you want to do, and how robotics now is going to help lead you from this part of your life into the next part of your life, whether it has, a career to do with robotics, or whether you use the skills and the technology that you're learning now to apply it to any walk of your life, whether you're going to be a stay-at-home mom who's going to help teach your kids at home, whether you're going to be a dad who's going to be in the farm. The idea of being able to take robotics and apply it to any walk of your life is going to be possible if you stick true to those questions of, why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing? And what really drives me to find the joy in my own life? So that seems like a pretty good spot to stop for some questions. So if anybody has any questions, please hit me.
Can you give an example of a blend of art and technology on a project?
Yeah, so probably the best example of art and technology blended when it comes to special effects is something that Walt Disney coined in the 70s called an animatronic. So Disney's Imagineers were doing exactly what I'm doing. They were taking technology and blending with art to try to create an experience for people that would help change their lives and try to create a more positive world to live in. So animatronics nowadays, though, are typically thought of in the film industry, even though Disney was using them to create, a series of presidents that would tell you what they had done in their presidency and the impact that they left on mankind. And you're watching Abraham Lincoln talk to you. I remember watching that as a kid, watching Abraham Lincoln and George Washington and Roosevelt all talk to us about what they had done and how we can all make the world a better place. Obviously had an effect on me. And they were able to make me feel like I was talking to these people because right in front of me was a robot with a sculpted skin that really felt like I was watching a human being talk to me. So animatronics in film are some of the coolest projects that I work on. And in particular, there was an animatronic that I did a couple of years ago called the Enuati, which is for a film that you can watch on, I think it's on Netflix. I know it's on Amazon, called Beast of the Water. They changed the name of it. But the monster itself is called the Enuati. And as far as I know, it is the largest full creatures animatronic suit that's ever been made by anybody. Any of the big Hollywood guys that have been doing this since the turn of the last century was performed by an actor named Daniel Gilchrist, who is 7'7", just as God made him. And then we turned him into a 9-foot tall monster. There are taller monsters than that, but those guys are all wearing stilts. And they are as much of a puppet as they are a creature suit. But the Enuati was a full creature suit that was sculpted by me and all those guys that you see in that photo. And the whole thing was cast in foam latex and done in a traditional, like, practical special effects environment. And it's a project that's really dear to my heart, not just because of the art and technology that was blended to create this huge monster. And he did all kinds of crazy stuff in the movie. He's ripping people's arms off. He is being shot and water is coming out of all of these bullet hits. His face is able to be animated through motors and mechanics. He had all these quills on the back of him that would stand up. They were all, again, animatronic, but inside of it, of course, was the best mechanic that we could have, which is a human being. And that was probably about one of the coolest projects that I've worked on still.
What is your favorite project to date?
Okay, so even though Enuati is very near and dear to my heart, probably the coolest project that I've done so far was called It Came From Yesterday, which is a film that you can also watch on Amazon, that I produced in 2008 with my buddy Jeff Waltrowski. Again, of course, it has animatronic monsters in it. There's me putting an animatronic head on my buddy Chucky. And it was a little bit different in the sense that typically movie making is very collaborative art form. And that's not to say that this movie was not collaborative, but the higher you get in the chain of command, the less your choices and your creative decisions are being dictated to you. And the more you're able to just work from your gut and create the kind of art that you want. Filmmaking and theater arts and typically hired, work for hire, Those kind of artistic endeavors are very collaborative, as opposed to, you figure someone like Da Vinci, he was just doing his painting. He was just doing his sculpture. It Came From Yesterday was the closest that I have gotten so far to a film being like a painting, where there were only a couple of us who were making the creative choices, and it was such a small crew that it really felt like it was not a solitary artwork, but it definitely had more of that tone to it than, being a very small cog in a big machine. I worked on Batman when it was in town, The Dark Knight Rises, and there's hundreds of people that work on a film like that. And as a low man on the totem pole, I got to do some cool stuff. I worked on the Bat, which is the vehicle that flies around. We blew up some different locations with different explosions. That was really cool. But It Came From Yesterday really allowed us to get knee deep in it. And as a result, we were able to approach the film any way that we wanted. So you can see in that photograph there that there's a green screen behind us. And that is the only film that I have worked on where we shot the entire movie against a green screen, and every single environment I built digitally in a computer. So again, you want to talk about the combination of art and technology. Not only are the monster suits combining art and technology in the sense that it's an animatronic, but then we're also taking this live Bugman monster that we shot in front of a green screen, building an army of them, and then putting them in totally fabricated digital environments where we were able to build it all from the ground up, which is pretty cool.
What is your proudest FX achievement?
So probably my proudest moment as far as special effects go doesn't have the same kind of glamour that maybe Batman does, and it doesn't have the same kind of creative influence maybe that It Came From Yesterday does, but it allowed me to invent something that I still make to date, which was a show called The Lieutenant of Inishmore. So The Lieutenant of Inishmore is a live theater performance, and you can see the outcome of it there on stage. That's towards the end of the play. And this play required 4 different people, 2 different cats to be shot and killed on stage, and the bodies of 3 different people to be completely dismembered on stage. And believe it or not, it's an anti-violence play. It's using, over-the-top, ridiculous amounts of blood and violence to convey a very non-violent message. And that goes back again to the philosophy kind of aspect of what I'm talking about, how you can leave a positive impact on humanity. So not only did it affect the audience that was watching it at the moment, which was audience after audience. I did that show in 16 different cities. Tens of thousands of people have seen that show as a result of the work that I did. I did it in Pittsburgh. We did it in Peru. We did it in California in a couple of different places, in New Mexico, and on that list goes. But as a result, I was able to, and this is what makes it the proudest moment for me, is that I was able to invent a device that I was talking about earlier called a squib effect. So a squib traditionally is a small explosive that you put on a human being, and it blows through a packet of blood to make it look like you get shot. Obviously, that's going to be dangerous. Putting explosives on anybody is going to be dangerous and is very expensive. So as far as theater, expensive means it's out the door. Explosives on humans means it's out the door because you're in front of a live audience. You can't be putting explosives on people in a live audience setting. So that show asked me to create a non-explosive way to create the same kind of effect on stage. And so that was born, the squib effect. And now I create these devices. Like I said, I sell them all over the world. And as far as leaving a positive impact on humanity, what it allows me to do is help independent filmmakers who could never afford a pyrotechnician to come do a squib in their movie, or even hire a special effects person to help them. It allows them to add these kind of practical effects in their movie, and now they're able to tell the world what they have to say. If they have a message that they're trying to get across, again, you think about a movie like Schindler's List, or Saving Private Ryan, or a war movie like that again is a very anti-violent message through a violent piece of artwork. those guys now have a voice, whereas before they might be limited only to what the computer could give them or only what they could make with a ketchup bottle, and the more real they're able to make their moments, the more their message really rings true with people. And that's the same for theater and museums, and scuba effects are used in all kinds of different ways. So that was definitely the creation of scuba effects, and the show at the Lieutenant of Minishmore was my proudest effects moment so far.
So what is your favorite squib project?
Okay, so I've used those scuba effects in all kinds of different settings, like I was talking about, and some of them had pretty heavy tones to them and were very philosophy driven, and then some of them were just fun. And I think probably the coolest squib project that I've worked on so far, there's a pair of dancer ladies in Las Vegas, Nevada, called the Hillywood Sisters. Hannah and Hilly have created this show called the Hillywood Show. And what they do is they do like a mashup of a popular piece of music and some kind of popular video or television show. And they asked me to come to Georgia and do a parody of The Walking Dead meets Queen's Another One Bites the Dust. And for me, that was the funnest project because every single day it was just squib after squib after squib. We would rig, Matt Silva was the makeup artist who worked on it, and he would create a zombie and we would load him up with blood, and we would do these really cool bullet hits. And they wanted us to make them as grandiose as we could. There was sky was the limit on that. And I think what made it my favorite project as far as squibs go is that they shot it with a camera called the Phantom, which shoots at 1,500 frames a second. So, it's one thing to just shoot a squib. It's another thing to get to see it in super duper slow motion and really watch it cruise through the sky. And I think that definitely was my favorite squib project so far. You guys should watch it. I think we're about to watch it. So I am not hearing any of the audio on this end, but I'm hoping that you guys can hear Queen's Another One Bites the Dust as we're watching this. So, like I said, it's a parody of The Walking Dead. So it's going to have a lot of those characters that you see from that show. We know this guy. Of course, he's being played by one of the Hillywood Sisters because she's the primary dancer in the show. And of course, we have the audience is glued to the TV because that's how The Walking Dead does. And here goes the first one. Oh, yeah, there's one of Matt Silva's awesome zombies. Oh, no. Right? And so check out that bullet hit. Looking great. Boom. And there goes another one. Boom. There goes another one. It's like all day long. We did this for a week. We just went like zombie after zombie. That one was a really cool one for me because we did entrance and exit wound in the same shot. That is a little trickier to accomplish. Maybe not as tricky as 36 bullet hits on a single person, but it definitely carried its complications. And Hilly, who is playing Rick there, she did all of her own makeup, and she did a really convincing job. Yeah, there goes another entrance exit. That one was in the head. And you can put these things all over your body, which is pretty cool. It's plug and play, and you can use them to make it look like you get chopped with an axe, and not always just getting shot, which is pretty cool. That day was really cool. They got a bunch of firemen up on the roof there, making that rain for us. It was actually a pretty hot day, and there was definitely no rain. You can see that in the background. You can see how sunny it is. And this sequence here does not have any squibs in it, but is probably one of my favorite sequences in the whole show, just because of how cool the Phantom captures all this. And again, art and technology. The Phantom camera is a piece of technology, but it really helped to enhance this artwork that these dancers are doing. So even the performance arts, yeah, look at that. That is awesome. I've never seen the camera be able to capture slow-mo like that. And that kid was such a great dancer too. And Carl, the kid who played Carl. And of course, we're seeing Michonne there. We get to see her create a squib here in a minute. That's another one of Matt Silva's pieces. And then this was shot later, not in Georgia, but in LA. After the Hollywood sisters had seen how we did a lot of this stuff, they felt like they were prepared enough that they could create and approach some of these moments like that one on their own. And they did. That one turned out really nice. And here goes another slew of cool bullet hits all in a row. And the timing of all of this was so important. Yeah, there goes Michonne. There goes another shot. Because it's to the beat of the music. So every time one of those squibs went off, it had to happen just to the beat of the music. And in a second, there's a really good example of that as we hit the tempo of the music. Boom, boom, boom. And we would walk through those moments, for an hour, rehearsing it and saying, boom, boom, boom. This is where it needs to happen, And this is probably my favorite squib in the whole thing. Boom, boom. That one's cool because it's in the open prosthetic on her forehead, which was pretty cool. And Evan, you probably just kill this whole bit because it's just a bunch of Rick talking in the. Yeah, see, now they're going to make their pitch on getting you to subscribe. So so that was definitely one of the coolest projects that I worked on. You got anybody have any questions about that video or about squibs or anything like that? I'd be happy to answer those.
So why are squib FX important, and what purpose do they serve?
Okay, so I touched on this a little bit earlier. They're primarily important because they're keeping people safe. I think that again from the campaigner nature that I have, anytime that I can help keep people safe, that's a big feather in my cap. I worked on a show called Outsiders that shot here a couple of years ago, and there was a moment where they were going to put squibs, like real squibs, with explosives on a 93-year-old woman. She was getting shot, and it was going to be an entrance and exit wound. So she was going to get 2 of these explosives, one on her chest and one on her back. And that's a moment where, honestly, you could really hurt somebody. I know that squibs have knocked people out cold before. So you don't want to be putting that on a little old lady. And so the purpose they serve is to keep people safe. She was able to focus on her performance and not worry about the fact that an explosive was about to go off on her. And so they serve that purpose and they're important for that purpose. But I think that the most important part about them is what I was talking about earlier, which is giving artists a voice and a way to create a practical effect in camera that they would otherwise not be able to achieve because it's either too expensive or too dangerous. They don't have the licenses or permits or anything like that. So it's about safety and about accessibility.
How do Squib FX rigs work?
I'm glad you asked. So I have one of them with me that I'm going to show you guys. So this is what I'm talking about. This device here is the heart of Squib FX. So I can talk, I'm sure that you guys are going to like me to nerd out on this a little bit. So I can talk about the physics of how this thing works. So this piece here, which is, there we go, now we can really see it, is called a solenoid valve. So a solenoid valve is really interesting in the sense that what you've got is a bladder that is halfway through this valve that's a piece of rubber, that when I pump air into this tank, and I'm pumping it in through this bicycle valve, so I pump air into this tank, and it stores the air in here, but there's a little tiny hole in this bladder that allows the air to pass through the bladder and hold equal pressure above and below the piece of rubber. And that keeps the rubber seated. And it's going to stay there until the pressure changes. So a solenoid is basically just an electromagnet. So the challenge with a non-explosive squib is how do you use air to push fluid, but with an electronic signal? So what we've got is a trigger, and you can hear it kind of give a little squeak. And this trigger is using 9-volt batteries that are in this box here, and that travels through these wires. An electromagnet, as I'm sure that I don't need to be telling you guys this, but I'm going to tell you anyways, is a steel pin with a copper coil wrapped around it. So when I run electricity through that copper coil, it wants to move the pin. Just the same as with an alternator, like in your vehicle. If you were to spin that steel inside the copper, it's going to generate electricity. Conversely, if you want to make a piece of steel move, you can wrap it in a piece of copper, and then if you electrify that copper, the steel pin wants to move. And the only function that steel pin is serving is that at the bottom of this thing is a little rubber gasket. And when the steel jumps out of the way, the rubber then allows that pressure to change from above and below this rubber gasket, and allows, and this is what's important about a squib. Otherwise, you could just use like a garden sprayer. What's important is that all of the air that I have stored in here is allowed out at once, instantaneously. It comes rushing out of this thing. So obviously, that's just air rushing out of a tube. So that's not going to do anything for us. So what that means is that we have to push something. So what are we pushing? This is another piece of this puzzle that is a piece of blood tubing. So what we do is screw this guy onto here, and it just threads right in. And so now this could be full of confetti. This could be full of dirt. This could be full of dust or water. In this case, it's going to be full of stage blood. And once this tubing is full, and the air comes rushing out through this valve, it's going to push whatever is in its way out of the way. This piece here is a 3D printer. You see the 3D printers behind me? Those blue boxes back against the wall. I'm using those to 3D print these ports that it's kind of tough to tell with this lighting. Oh, there we go. That's the money shot. So what I've got is the ability now for the blood to travel up this tube and make a 90-degree turn and come spraying out of the end of this thing. So typically you would wear this, say, like in the Hollywood show, they're wearing them under their shirts. Then there's a little slit in their shirt, and this is just Velcroed from the inside. There's a little piece of Velcro on the face of this that allows the shirt, no matter how they move around, the shirt stays with the port. So when the blood goes off, the actor pretends like they got shot, and all the blood comes spraying out this direction. And it totally clears the tube. And what's one of the advantages of this system, which was not designed to do this, but it turns out is really advantageous, is that you can just leave this on your actor, and especially if it's a zombie, and who cares if they're already covered in blood, is that you just fill it right back up with blood again. You use a syringe to fill the blood tube up with more blood, and you just fire it off again. Use a bicycle pump to fill the other end of this up, and you can just fire it over and over. I did a show in Russia where they were doing a live performance where they used one of these, I think it was 16 or 17 times a day, and then they had used it for 2 months straight. I think they got somewhere upwards of 2,000 to 3,000 shots out of one of these things before they felt like it had failed. And so when I talked to them later and they said, "Oh yeah, man, it just stopped working," whatever, the batteries went dead. The batteries went dead in the box, and they thought they had ruined the rig. So all they had to do was put 2 more 9 volts in it, and they would have gotten 2,000-3,000 more hits again. And so not only are you able to create a bullet hit in your movie that is not super expensive, but the more you use it and the more films you use it and you rent it out to your friends and all that kind of stuff, the cheaper it becomes, because now you've got 2 hits for the same amount of money, or 3 or 4 or 10,000 or whatever like that. So obviously you're like, okay, yeah, good idea, buddy. So what are you going to do with that? Like, okay, so you got a piece of hose and a solenoid valve, and like, how are you going to turn that into a special effect for a movie? So let me show you. So enter my beautiful assistant, Crystal. Crystal, would you care to join me? Crystal has been made up like a zombie from a show that we did earlier today. And in the vein of the Hollywood show, I thought that would be a good example of let me show you how I can rig this up to her and create the illusion of a bullet hit on Crystal. So Crystal, will you hold this, please? The most important part of this process is not losing track of this, because here's what you don't want. You don't want to fill this up with air, fill this up with blood, and then like a jag-off, step on it, because then there's blood all over the inside of your house, which I have done before. I've done that on the inside of dressing rooms. I've done that on the set of mansions. So keep track of this thing. Thank you. So the whole thing is held on with a holster. And it's going to be, will you turn around for me? It's going to just strap onto the actor's back. And we could probably take your flannel off, actually. There we go. Excellent. I'm just going to set this down and lose track of the trigger, just like I told us not to do. And I'm going to put this brace around Crystal like so. All right, and then we pull that nice and tight. And so what I'm using this back brace just to support the squib itself. When I manufacture these things to sell, they have like an actual holster, almost like a gun holster, that you would slide the squib into. This is just another brace that I had around. Of course, you know, the cobbler's son has no shoes, so the professional effects guy, when he uses his own squib, doesn't even have a squib holster that has an actual holster on it. But I'll show you another way to be able to do that. So what I'm going to do is, again, not lose track of my trigger. I'm just going to take this whole deal and pretend this is a pocket on a holster. It's just going to slide right down in there. Boom. And now she's got this thing on. And then when she faces the camera, you can't tell that she's wearing it at all. And so now I could run this, again, like I said, I could run this to her chest. I could run it, you know, to her belly, whatever like that. In this particular case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run it up to her head. You can see that she has a bullet hole in her head. So combining art and technology in a shot like this for a movie, what you would do is just create a bullet hole on the actor's head. In this case, it wouldn't have blood coming out of it, but then you would use the computer to just hide that just for a moment, so that when the gunshot went off, you would get rid of that mask that you had created over top of the bullet hole, and suddenly she has a bullet hole in her head, and you time that at the same time as you squeeze the trigger, blood comes out of the back of her head, and it's glorious. So I'm going, will you turn back around for me? So basically what I'm going to do, let's hike this whole thing down just a little bit, can we? There we go. I'll wear it down on her hips. There we go. Great. Excellent. And then this also, not only is there Velcro on the front so that if it has to align with your shirt, it can make the blood come out, but also it has Velcro on the back of it. That's nice if it's going to be like, if I was wearing a black costume, there's a good chance that you wouldn't even see this. You know, you run it around from the back, and Velcroing it on this direction is an option. But really what it's for is for head hits like this, because the Velcro, it's not Velcro brand, it's Duragrip, I believe it's called. It has such a crazy bite to it that you can just take it and scrub it into somebody's hair like this, and it just totally stays exactly put, just like so. Right, and so let's pull this down even just a little bit further. There we go, that's good. Uh-oh.
I can hold him.
Okay. That's all right. She's doing all right for right now. Yeah, will you grab her? Enter the baby. So the Lieutenant of Inishmore, and it came from yesterday, the Aniwati are my favorite creations in the special effects world. But Eloise, this baby Eloise, might be one of my favorite creations to date. I can only take partial credit. Crystal gets credit, and God gets all the credit. Okay, so what we would do then is take her costume, and we would put the costume over top of the tubing. We're not going to do that because we're holding a baby. And I'm going to hide this trigger for the same reason. And then we did a pre-recorded video earlier, guys, when the sun was still out, where we shot this thing off so you can actually see it go off. But I will show you at least how we're going to load it with air. Nobody needs instructions on how to use a bike pump. But basically, all I'm going to do then is just pop it right onto the bottom here. And put about 20 PSI. This pump has a gauge on it. So I'm just, and you can do this with the air compressor. You can do it with a pump that doesn't have a gauge. You just put a couple pumps in it. And now this tank has air in it, and the solenoid is just waiting to spray blood everywhere. So, of course, the only thing that we're missing at that point is the actual stage blood. And so like I said, I introduced that with a syringe. Like so, and I just put the syringe. This is probably my favorite part, because it's not often that you get to stick a syringe in somebody's head like this and pump them full of a bunch of blood. almost never while you're holding a baby. So each one of these is about 60 milliliters of blood, each of these syringe fills. So you can imagine how much blood is about to spray out of her head, because there goes 60. Here goes another full syringe, like so. Yep, and here it comes. Doop, doop, doop. Right up to the top. Okie dokie. And that's it. So now we have a bunch of fluid in here. We've got a bunch of air ready to push it. And we've got a trigger that as soon as we hit it, is going to create a giant mess. So before we actually do that, I should probably take this apart so that we don't spray our baby with stage blood. Okay, so I think that probably moves us into watching her actually get shot outside in that pre-recorded video that we did. And then I think a few more questions if you guys have some more questions for us. Great, so here we go. We're walking outside. Oh, there she is. Oh, no. Oh. There it was. It was beautiful. Okay. So I'm just going to let this air out since basically we have a ticking time bomb here. I'm just pressing the valve with my fingernail. Okay, so I can answer some questions while I'm taking her apart here.
Okay, so what kind of Halloween movies have you done, and what kinds of unique special effects did those involve?
Let's see. Probably the most recent Halloween movie that I did was one called Haunt, which came out last Halloween and was about a bunch of kids who went to a haunted house where everything went terribly wrong for them. In that movie, what was the coolest special effect I created? Oh, in that movie, somebody gets their whole face ripped off with a hammer. That was pretty cool because that's a situation where I'll unrig you here in a little bit if you don't mind just hanging out. That's all right. In that circumstance, creating a special effect like that is really interesting because you're creating you can step on that. You're creating the impression of something happening to somebody, but not with makeup like we've done with Crystal, but rather you create a whole prop body of the person and you create like a prop head of them. And then you only have a couple of takes to be able to rip their face off. So that's probably the closest to like a strictly Halloween movie that I've ever worked on. Oh, bless you.
So our next question is, what is your favorite part of your job?
Look at this. I'm like hanging out with my lady and our baby and making it look like she's getting shot with a device that I invented while the rest of my family is out there watching a movie. And, you know, it's a couple of days before Halloween. Last night we had a big Halloween party. And I think that is to say that the favorite part of my job is that it doesn't really feel like a job, that I'm able to make work such a everyday part of my life that while it doesn't consume all of the other aspects of my life, it dovetails in such a way that that even though I do have responsibilities to meet, I don't necessarily feel like I'm at work.
What is the most challenging project you have ever worked on?
Most challenging. I would say we just did a film called I'm Your Woman. And we just watched a sneak preview of this movie. And I'm so sad to say that the scene I'm about to describe was completely cut from the movie. However, because it was cut, I get to talk about it because it's not going to premiere until December 11th, I think. But it was shot here in Pittsburgh, I'm Your Woman. And in that movie, there's a character who is missing an ear. And as part of the storytelling at one point, we were going to see how he lost his ear. So what we needed to do was create a fake ear on an actor that he could dive into a pool, swim across the pool, come up out of the water, and have his ear shot completely off of his head. So we had to create a prosthetic makeup that not only looked like he had a fake ear that was being blown off, but it had to survive the pool and it had to survive the friction of him swimming, and it had to incorporate a device similar to what Crystal's wearing that that could make a trip across the pool and then come up out the water. And not only that, but now you've got water kind of streaming down him, and now he's wet. He doesn't have a costume on that is going to support the mechanics, and it also incorporates a prosthetic. So you've got makeup effects and physical effects, technology and art, all kind of working in this single shot of what sounds like it would be basically impossible. And it was one of the rare times when I was in a production meeting with the director and with the producers, and they said, "Okay, we have this moment, whatever. We're thinking, whatever. We'll put like a little green thing on his ear, you know, and then the computer can make it look like it got shot off." And I said, "Guys, what if we could do the whole thing in camera?" And they said, "How are you gonna do that?" And I said, "Let me try it," you know. And they let me try it. And by God, it worked. And so they said, "Yeah, oh yeah, here goes his ear." That's so funny. So check this out. So this was the ear that he wore. That's why it's all skanky and has a bunch of hair on it. And so I built it so that you see this little reservoir in the back. The squib would run up the back of his head. He's wearing it, oh geez, on the side of his head like so. The squib would run up to the back of the ear, and when it would go off, it would create this cloud of water blended with blood. But this is also a rare earth magnet in here that is holding the ear together. So what you're able to do then, and there's just enough glue here on the bottom that it holds it on long enough for it to be shot off. So we would magnetize it together. He would swim across the pool. He would come out, and then the blood would fire at the same time as it blew this completely off of his head and went flying, so that he ended up with basically then an ear that was either in some of the takes we did. I think we did 3 or 4 takes. In some of the takes, he would still be there, and it would be flopping around. In some of the takes, it would blow completely off, and he would end up with, you know, his ear completely missing, which was pretty cool.
If someone was interested in getting into special effects, how could they get involved in that?
Okay, so you can go to school for that. That sounds really expensive. And they can't really teach you in school how to do a lot of the stuff that I've been talking about all night, how to problem solve, how to have a positive state of mind, and how to combine art and technology in such a way as to create these illusions on camera. But you can learn that in school, because that's what I did. I went to school. I got an associate's degree at the Art Institute of Pittsburgh, and that was like just enough schooling that it didn't take me the rest of my life to pay off the debt that I just incurred, but also gave me the rudimentary tools to understand how to learn more about what I wanted to do. So that's one avenue. You can go to school. There's schools all over the country. That is a circumstance where the Art Institute of Pittsburgh doesn't offer that track anymore. It was an industrial design track that was a traditional industrial design. There's product design and car design and toy design, and special effects was just part of it. But the Cinema Makeup School in LA is a really good makeup school. Joe Blasco's in Florida is pretty decent. There's one here in near Pittsburgh in Monessen called the Tom Savini School. The Tom Savini School of Special Effects. It's okay. The greatest thing about it is Jerry Gergley, who is one of the instructors there, is a master and has been doing this for a long time. And honestly, just an education from Jerry is worth the money that you would spend at the Savini School. But Stan Winston is a makeup artist who did Terminator and Predator and Jurassic Park, and he died about 10 years ago, something like that, in his 50s, late 50s. Probably from huffing all this crap that we use in special effects without wearing his respirator. Wear your respirator, kids. But his son, Matt Winston, who worked with Stan on all kinds of stuff, created a school called the Stan Winston School of Special Effects. And when he first created it, it was very unorthodox. But now, living in this pandemic world that we live in, it's very modern way of looking at things. It's basically a series of videos taught by dozens of masters in the industry who are masters of their own craft. So whether they make eyes or teeth or animatronics, or they do makeup or foam fabrication, they do all kinds of different things. And you can buy these videos either as DVDs that you can watch at home and learn how to do this stuff at home, or as live streams that you can pay a subscription and have access to all of them or whatever. But the Stan Winston School is amazing. I still use the Stan Winston School because who would not want to learn from a master? Like, you never stop learning. And that is a platform that allows you to continue to learn, way down the road. Right up until the pandemic hit, I always said that if you wanted to learn special effects, shoot me an email, and you can come be an apprentice for me. And I had at different points, I had 10 different apprentices who would all train under me. Since the pandemic, I have limited that to a single apprentice, a male apprentice and a single female apprentice each year. So I have like a essay and a couple of questions. I just want to make sure that people are real about wanting to learn special effects, but I'll teach you special effects for free. Because I believe that I'm supposed to take the things that have been given to me so generously by artists in my career and pay that stuff forward. And a lot of the artists, and it's selfish too, because a lot of the artists that I work with now were former apprentices of mine. So if I want someone to be able to do this the right way, or do it at least my way, even if it's not the right way, if I've been the one training them, then they have the skills in the way that I needed them to have skills. So I'm still adjusting to how that works in a pandemic world, but even if it's not with me, find a special effects artist out there. I mean, we're living in Twitter, Instagram, Facebook world, man, where you have access to people in a way you've never had access to them before. And even if you're just asking them questions, they'll answer them. A lot of times they'll answer them. I'm somebody who will just answer your questions. Even if you can't come apprentice with me, I'm definitely going to answer your questions. But one of the questions you can ask those people that you can find on the internet are, can I work for you? Can I come sweep your floor? Can I come do things for you for free so I don't have to pay to go to school? And maybe I can make your life a little easier. And in the process, maybe I can learn how to do special effects. And there are very few people who would turn that offer down. So school, Stan Winston videos, and find someone to apprentice for. In reverse order. I would do those in reverse order. Find an apprenticeship first. That's the most important. If you can't buy the Stan Winston videos, if you can do those in tandem, you're going to be invaluable, because you're going to go apprentice for somebody. You're going to be like, hey, I watched this video, and in this video, they were making a mold like this. And, worst case scenario, you just taught the person that you're apprenticing for something that they didn't know before. Best case scenario, they're able to reinforce that knowledge with knowledge of their own. And especially if it's with me, I want to see somebody's growth. That matters to me. So.
Earlier, you posed the question about purpose in one's career. Why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing? And what truly drives me? How does one go about finding these answers? Any recommendations to help answer these questions?
I guess I feel like there's two really straightforward answers on that. One is going to be in dabbling in things that are interesting to you. When you hear about something that you think is cool or interesting, just check it out. Like, there's no reason that you can't be a chemist. There's no reason that you can't be a pilot. There's no reason that you can't be a dancer. Like, whatever it is that you think would be cool, try it. Because if when you try it, you're like, this sucks, then that's not what you're supposed to be doing. If, however, you, as soon as you get a little taste of it, you're like, I need more of this. I want more of this. And you find that it's sort of all consuming, even if you're not going to make any money doing it, even if everybody in your family thinks it's the stupidest thing they could think of, even if everybody laughs at you for doing it, that is what you were supposed to be doing. And if you have any questions about that, then you want to apply the second piece, which is prayer. If you ask God what you're supposed to be doing, he will tell you. If you ask for clear direction and a clear path, it will be shown to you. So sometimes, it is, you want to do one thing and you're being shown that you're supposed to be doing something else. One thing is to look inside for what you're supposed to be doing, and one is to be looking out around you. Like, you're sitting here watching this video right now and you're listening to a special effects guy talk. So what in your life brought you to this video? What in your life brought you to hearing about special effects and becoming excited about it in a way that you're like, man, maybe that could be something that I thought was cool? Because I watched movies when I was a kid, and I talked to a few people in my life through the strangest circumstances who they said, maybe special effects might be a thing you might think is cool. I didn't just I didn't say special effects, that's what I want to do, and then go find it. I met it halfway. It was coming to me as I was going that direction through biology and art. Same with these crazy circumstances. And so, you're trying to listen to what God is telling you, and you're listening to that through your heart, and you're listening to that through the messengers that he sends into your life.
Does your knowledge of biology help you with your job?
Yeah, 1,000%, because I just did a movie called Unearth. And in the movie Unearth, it's a movie about fracking. Okay. And so in the movie starts, the first couple of scenes are of miniature models that we built that are of shale being fracked. So it's like the drilling down and going sideways and then exploding. Biology is it's specifically the study of living things, but shale is once living things that are now rock. So even understanding how the living matter would have formed the shale to begin with, and how people have designed these machines to let you drill down through it. So here's what's cool about the movie is that in the fracking process, what they do is they release this fungus. And so the fungus, I don't know if any of you have ever heard of a cordyceps, but the idea of a cordyceps is that it's a fungus that makes you go crazy and seek a certain type of environment. It eventually kills you, but in a place where now it can spread to the rest of whatever creature it is. Specifically, there are ants that a cordyceps fungus reacts with that makes them climb to the very top of a tree. They go crazy. They kill all the other ants around them. They climb all the way to the top of the tree. They calcify into this crazy mummy thing. And then the fungus bursts out of its body and floats down to the forest floor where it infects a bunch of other ants. So knowing that then allowed me then to create a type of fungus for this film that human beings could experience that was rooted in reality. Like scary movies and monster movies and that kind of thing, they're a lot scarier when they feel like they could be real. The Enuati, it's like, okay, so we're going to make the mouth open and close. Like, what does that mean? Even if it's not teeth, occlusion is something where your teeth come together in a certain way. That's a real thing in biology. And it's like, why do your teeth occlude in a certain way? Bird beaks are the best way to look at this, I think. Because just the way that a bird beak is designed and the way those pieces occlude are exactly perfect for the kind of job that it's going to do. Am I a bird that eats seeds? Am I a bird that's going to peck grubs out of a tree? Am I a bird that's going to dive and catch fish in the water? And the way that your mouth occludes affects the way that the design of the animal plays out. So when somebody says, okay, so I need a monster that it lives in the trees but it's made out of water, and then it appears and then it's biting everybody's heads off. Well, if you know anything about biology, that already is going to start to inform all kinds of decisions that you're going to make about the monster. So, okay, so it lives in the trees. Does it climb the trees, or does it fly into the trees? Is it camouflaged into the tree? Is it camouflaged into the leaves or into the branches or into the bark? Okay, so it's made out of water and takes on a solid form. That's pretty cool. So just that alone, what is that transition going to look like? But then what is that transition going to look like combined with the fact that it lives in a tree? And then at the end of the day, it's got to be able to bite somebody's head off. So how does the occlusion of its mouth lend itself to the ability to be able to do that? So biology 1 million times affects how you're going to create a special effect. Even something like a zombie. Okay, so Crystal got her throat ripped out. What does that look like? What is that flesh going to do? How is that piece going to move? And not only in a way to make a realistic zombie, but now she's a human being wearing a piece of rubber. The biology of her body combined with this piece of rubber that's glued onto her, she's going to sweat. So what is in sweat that's going to cause the glue to start to dissolve? If it needs to be in the pool, I'm your woman, what is in the pool? What is the chemistry in the pool and the biology of this person? How is that going to affect just what glue I want to use to glue an ear onto the side of his head. So yeah, biology is 100% critical to creating monsters and creating special effects.
So we are almost out of time, but one last question to wrap things up. Mr. Tolin, what is the best advice you've ever heard or received?
Best advice I've ever heard or received. I would say that was given to me by my dad, which I think I might have mentioned earlier, which is to think of the coolest job you can think of, because that is the job that you should be doing. And if that was not the best, I'm going to give you two pieces of advice that are the best advice. No, that's technically not the best. The other piece of advice that I was given is that that you were put on this earth to do specific work. Find out what that work is, and that is going to bring you and the people that you love the most joy.
Thank you for the great advice and for joining us today. And of course, thank you to everyone for watching. Be sure to join us next month to see Katie Beckworth, a Mars High School graduate who works in NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab. It's sure to be a good episode. The Mars Robotics Speaker Series is a production of the students of the Mars Robotics Association. Mars Robotics is part of FIRST Robotics, with teams competing in the FIRST LEGO League and FIRST Technical Challenge. For more information about the Mars Robotics Association, the Mars Robotics Speaker Series, or any of our other programs, please visit us online at www.marsroboticsassociation.org. Thank you for joining us tonight. Happy Halloween, everyone.